You have always been afraid of the wrong thing about the Tyrannosaurus rex. For 100 years, the movies sold you the same monster, a wall of muscle and teeth that throws back its head and roars. But that animal, the one that announces itself, was never the real king. The real Tyrannosaurus rex did not need to roar. It did not need to be seen at all. Everything that made it the most terrifying hunter of the late Cretaceous was hidden inside its skull, in senses so sharp they read the world like a second kind of sight. It could see you from a distance that should have been safe, picking your shape out of the tree line with an eye sharper than any hawk that flies today. And long before you ever saw it, it had already smelled you. A single thread of your scent on the wind was enough to tell it exactly where you were standing. And when the light failed and the forest went black, it did not stop hunting. In the dark, it could still hear you breathe. This is not old monster movie storytelling. It is what a growing body of real evidence now suggests, that the senses of Tyrannosaurus rex were among the deadliest ever assembled by evolution. The scariest thing about the king was never its size or its bite or the sound it made. This is Lost Continent. Tonight we go down into the late Cretaceous dark, 66 million years ago, to meet the predator that hunted not with noise but with senses. And to understand why, for almost everything that shared its world, it was already too late by the time they knew it was there. To understand the fear, you have to start where the fear actually begins, not with the teeth, inside the skull. When scientists took the fossil brain cases of tyrannosaurs and scanned them, rebuilding the shape of the brain that once filled that space, one region stood out. One part had swollen far beyond all the rest. We know this because the skulls themselves survived. Museum specimens like this one let researchers measure, cast, and model the very anatomy that housed those senses, 66 million years after the animal died. The swollen region was the olfactory bulbs, the part of the brain that processes smell. In Tyrannosaurus rex, they were enormous, larger in proportion than in almost any other dinosaur ever studied. When researchers compared the genes tied to smell across dinosaurs and their living relatives, the T-Rex came out on top, with an estimated 600 or more smell genes. Roughly the same as a modern house cat, and more than almost any living bird. The best sense of smell of any dinosaur ever measured. That was the conclusion when scientists ranked them, and the king sat at the very top of the list. A nose like that changes everything. It means a Tyrannosaurus rex could pull the scent of a carcass out of the moving air from kilometers away, then turn and start walking toward a meal it could not yet see. Or it could find something still alive, an animal crouched in the ferns, certain it was hidden, holding its breath. It did not matter. If you were downwind, you were not hiding, you were already found. Then there are the eyes, and here, more than anywhere else, the movies got the monster completely wrong. Forget the idea that it could only see you if you moved. Its eyes faced forward, side by side, giving it true binocular vision, overlapping fields, real depth, the power to judge the exact distance to a target. You can still read it in the skull. The eye sockets sit forward on the head and angle inward, exactly the arrangement a modern ambush hunter uses to lock onto range before the strike. One reconstruction put its binocular field at around 55 degrees, wider than a modern hawk, one of the sharpest-eyed hunters alive today. And by one well-known estimate, its visual sharpness may have reached up to 13 times that of a human eye. Where you would see only a smudge on the horizon, it saw a clear, moving target. So the old trick, freeze and it will not see you, was a death sentence. To this animal you were never a blur, you were always in focus. It did not need you to move to find you. Standing perfectly still would not have saved you, it would only have held you in place. And there is a real possibility it owned the one thing every prey animal fears most, not the day, the night. Inside the eye of a T-Rex sat a ring of thin bone, the scleral ring, a structure many animals still carry today, and the size of that ring is a clue. Its proportions hint at how wide the pupil behind it could open, and how much light the eye could gather. In living animals, rings shaped like this tend to belong to creatures that move in low light. The evidence suggests, and this is still an open question among scientists, that the Tyrannosaurus rex could stay active when the light was failing, at dawn, at dusk, and quite possibly deep into the dark. It is still debated, and honest researchers say so out loud. But if it is true, then the king owned the hours when its prey was nearly blind and it hunted straight through them. Picture the last gray light draining out of a Cretaceous sky, the small animals bedding down, half blind now, trusting the dark to hide them, and somewhere in that dark, something the length of a bus, still moving, still hunting. But even in total blackness, with the eyes finally useless, it was not helpless, it was listening. Deep inside the skull, coiled like a snail's shell, sits a delicate bone called the cochlea, the organ of hearing. In tyrannosaurs, scientists found it was unusually long. In living animals, a long cochlea points to one thing: sensitivity to low, deep, far-carrying sound, the kind that rolls through a forest and slips around cover. The low rumble of a single footstep, the soft crush of a body moving through undergrowth, sounds you might not even notice. To the king, they were a map of everything alive in the dark around it. It may have reached even lower into infrasound, sound so deep you do not hear it so much as feel it, a pressure in your chest before your ears ever catch up. So by the time the danger was close enough to matter, the work was already done. In the dark, without ever seeing you, it had already placed you, pinned your position in the black. And at the very end, at the kill itself, it had one more sense that we very nearly missed entirely. Look closely at the bones of the snout, and they are riddled with tiny holes, dozens of small channels, the passages for a dense web of nerves feeding the surface of the face. You can see those nerve channels in the real skull, pitting the jawbones. It was that pattern matched against living crocodiles that first told scientists just how sensitive this face may have been. A face as sensitive to touch as our own fingertips. That is how researchers have described it, a snout that could feel. And in the dark, that changes the whole hunt. A snout that can feel is a snout that can test and grip and guide the jaws to exactly the right place, even when the eyes are useless and the kill is happening blind. New work even suggests those infamous teeth were not bared in a permanent grin at all. They may have been sheathed behind scaly lips, kept covered, kept sharp, and kept hidden until the very last second. But the single deadliest weapon a Tyrannosaurus rex carried was not in its skull at all. It was time. A T-Rex was not born a monster. The young were something else entirely, slender, long-legged, fast, and possibly dusted with feathers. A different animal, living a different life, hunting different prey. Some scientists now argue those juveniles were not young T-Rex at all, but a separate species, Nanotyrannus. It is a fight still raging in the journals, unresolved, with serious names on both sides, all of it fought out over the shape of these skulls. Comparing skull against skull, tooth count against tooth count, is exactly how that battle is waged, the same way earlier scientists once measured T-Rex against giants like Allosaurus. Because growing up took time, a great deal of it, roughly 30 years to go from that slender juvenile to the full, monstrous adult that haunts our imagination. And that means something chilling. Every full-grown adult was a veteran, decades of hunts, of kills, of injuries survived and lessons learned, all of it burned down into instinct. You were not facing a mindless animal throwing itself at you. You were facing an expert, one who had done this successfully 10,000 times before. So after all of this, the nose, the eyes, the ears, the face, the 30 years, one question is left. What did the monster actually sound like? Forget the Hollywood roar. That famous, chest-rattling scream was built in a studio, a blend of a baby elephant, a tiger, and an alligator, stitched together to frighten an audience. Its closest living relatives tell a very different story. Birds and crocodiles, the animals that bracket the dinosaurs, do not roar with open mouths. They boom, deep and closed-mouthed, from somewhere inside the body. So the real Tyrannosaurus rex most likely made a low, closed-mouth rumble, a sound that dropped down below the range of any scream and sank toward infrasound. A sound you would feel in your ribs before your ears ever caught it, not a warning, a pressure. Not a scream thrown in your face to freeze you in place, a vibration in the dark with no clear direction and no warning at all. Put it all together, a nose that finds you kilometers away, eyes that outsee you in daylight, ears that feel your footsteps in the black, a face that reads the dark by touch, and 30 years of practice behind every move. We know this predator and its prey shared the same world because sometimes they were buried in the same ground, their skulls surfacing side by side 66 million years later. The real upgrade was never the size, it was the silence. For most animals that shared its world, the last thing they ever knew was not a roar and not a monster filling the sky. It was nothing at all, a stillness that simply ended. That is the true king of the Cretaceous, not the beast that announces itself and gives you time to run, the one you never hear coming.